if you own a half an acre or a lot or 1 acre,
That's what I own.
that you're equivalent to somebody that say owns 20,000?
Absolutely, totally equivalent. One man, one vote, read the Constitution. That's what it says. State Constitution says it, federal Constitution. I am equivalent to the person that owns 500 acres. He has a vote, I got a vote, I'll use my vote. If he's not registered,
He's equivalent to us.
exactly.
And if it's going to cause earthquakes, his house is going to fall down just like somebody with 700 acres. It doesn't make any difference how much property you own, you're really going to share.
I agree with you, but everyone in this county should be treated equal when it comes to something that's for a fact.
Right.
That's what I agree, and I wanted to make sure I understand. Are you talking about the people who aren't registered to
I'm
vote?
talking about every single resident of Pocahontas County from one end to the other should be treated equal. Whether you're registered, whether you're not registered, whether you own 1 acre, whether you own 100. You're all equal, you're all registered.
I kind of look at it the survey.
Yeah, the survey will be the one we capture some of the people.
I don't live in Pocahontas County. I'm 300 yards from Pocahontas County.
Let's go to the next person here. I'm writing things down, going back and forth. Mr. Carpenter, I have you down next.
Thank you.
What's the next hand over here? Got it.
I sit here and listen to everything, and I'm still really confused about why that our commission thinks that we need to put this on the ballot to have a survey. I know why you think you want it on the ballot, because you have a certain group of people that is following you, Mr. Fleming, that have nothing better to do than to go out here and brainwash over the people that every well is going to be polluted in the county, and it doesn't take very much to scare some old people. I know that from my mother, 92 years old. It doesn't take very much to scare her, and this is happening in our county right now. Secondly, another question I'd like to ask you, if you put this on the ballot and it comes back and says, we don't want any drilling, that's what the ballot says. Now, can you put me a statute or someplace that says that a county commission has supersedes over state rules and regulations concerning any kind of drilling or coal mine or whatever you want to talk about? I don't know in my 6 years on the commission that I've ever run across a place where the county commission had more power than the state of West Virginia. Do you know of one of them right now? And I'm not through talking yet, but do you know of some situation like that where the county commission has more power than the state government, whether it be the DEP? Do you know of anything like this?
No.
I didn't think so. So it comes back and says, okay, we don't want any drilling. So you three guys say, oh, we're not going to have any drilling in this county. You're just spending our money for nothing. Because there is nothing, in my opinion, and you just agreed with me, that this commission can do really to stop drilling. And on the other hand, maybe the county says, come back and say, we don't want this drilling. I don't care if my neighbor, I don't know if I want to drill or not. I really don't know for my little piece of ground. But it comes back up, we don't want any drilling in the county. Are you taking my right to drill away from me? Sure you are. If you try to pass some kind of a resolution, do anything like you've got this crazy ordinance that you started with, now we've backed off of that. But I don't care if this neighbor of mine don't want drilling, and this neighbor of mine don't want drilling, that's fine. But if I own that property, and I pay the taxes on that property, can you tell me, as a county commission, that I can't do that? I don't think you have that kind of authority.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know of anything in the law that says we have more power than the state of Virginia. The only provision in the Constitution of West Virginia says that we have the right to address issues of public safety. And that would have to be argued in the court of law. But your question is very fair. And if the ballot were to come back with this question I put forward, for example, and it said the majority do not want drilling, it certainly doesn't guarantee that we can do anything, and that question remains to be pursued and answered. I would take a majority referendum, I shouldn't use that word, it's not a referendum, a majority survey that says we don't want drilling. I would take that as charge upon us as a commission to investigate that further to see if there is anything that's needed. But I don't know anything. Thank you.
I was just at the Forest Service down here in Arlington, looking through some different land maps and stuff. And up until about 96 is the most recent maps they still keep in the Arlington office. Everything is on computer file elements now, she told me. But I did not look at one piece of National Forest property through the maps I looked up until 96 that had been leased to oil and gas companies. That had not. Now, all the leases, like I say, up to 96, most of them has expired by now. But there was no record there of whether they was released or not. So I feel fairly confident that a lot of the government land is probably under lease at this point right now. And there is absolutely nothing the county or state is going to do to override the federal government. And that's about 60% of our county.
And they can't drill on national forest. We don't have any special rights. The national forest has no more special rights than the public land.
Back about 3 years ago, the Montague National Forest, all 846,000 acres of it was leased.
Yeah, I know every piece I looked at had been leased up until 96.
Not only three sections, but wilderness areas,
We don't have.
oil and gas, they bottom all cranberry, everything in cranberry wilderness, that is the old designated wilderness, they have an amendment. That's what one Tracy told me, she's now rights person. As far as that goes, it's the same. You can go buy a lease on land down Rhino, you can to, if you knew how, who to talk to, it's public land. If they bought the metal rights, they can be leased, just like buy, sell, timber, buy firewood, it's open to the public. Right now, that's just how it is.
But as a county, I don't think you have enough authority to override it.
That's a big question.
Okay, let's go back to the next question. On this side, the person I had down, John. Somebody give you a hand over here for the next question. Go ahead, John.
Well, this is actually not a very interesting subject, but it's the subject that sort of starts the whole debate. It would be much more interesting to talk about drilling and leasing terms and the probabilities and so forth. But I have to go back to the subject that you talked about for a while, David, about whether the county commission has the authority just to put a question on the ballot. You know, this is the first step before the first step before the first step, and it isn't very interesting. But you read, maybe they're not formal opinions, letters from the State Department, the Attorney General, suggesting that there was not a specific grant of authority to county commissions to do a thing like that. Maybe the most important thing that makes this country a wonderful place to live is that we have a principle that's called limited government. Government has no powers except those explicitly granted to it. If you live under a king, the king is assumed to have all power to do anything he wants. He can marry your daughter, he can take your land, he can come and eat the bread off your table. In this country, government, by law, not necessarily the way things work, but by law, can't do anything that we the people have not, through our representatives, explicitly granted it authority to do. And in spite of the fact that you have some high-priced lawyers saying, oh, you can probably get away with it, what you read us and what I have read does not suggest that the county commission has any authority to place a question on the ballot. Going beyond that, if that's not enough, you quite reasonably said we want to have a simple question, but there are no simple questions. Enormous power belongs to the person who frames questions. For instance, somebody suggested that instead of just asking, do we favor or disfavor drilling, I mean, that's a question I have strong opinions about a lot of aspects of the issue, but I would have a very hard time answering that question because it's too simple, because it depends on so many other things. One person in the audience suggested that instead the question should be, do you favor protections? Well, protection for one person is an attack on another. You know, a protection for someone who doesn't want drilling would be considered an attack on the rights of someone who wants to realize the subsurface value of land they own. So meetings like this are certainly a good way for you guys to gauge public opinion and for us and the public to hear what other people say. I think a suggestion to the newspaper or the radio station that wouldn't it be nice if there were some surveys, wouldn't it be nice if there were some forums, would generate some more opinion. I don't actually agree with Mr. Walker that every person's opinion is as important as every other person's, because some people don't bother to inform themselves and some people do. Some people don't care and some people do. The people who come to meetings like this care. We hope along with that goes a certain amount of energy to inform themselves. But I think surveys where people call you up when you're sitting down to eat your lunch, or even simplistic necessarily, and I don't mean to attack the idea, but any question you put on the ballot is really too simple, and it's too easy to interpret it. For instance, you said that if the result of a simple question, do you favor or disfavor drilling, came back in the negative, that the majority of people disfavor drilling, you would explore ways to regulate it. Well, those people didn't say we want to see it regulated. They say we disfavor it. Maybe they want it banned. So I don't think a question's simple enough to ask in a form like that. If the county commission had the authority to do it, which I don't think they do, would really be useful. I think meetings like this are good. I also find myself in the really queasy position of agreeing with Mr. Saffer that I don't think this is going to happen any soon for reasons of geology, of infrastructure, and global economics. So I think we have a lot of time, and maybe what needs to be done now is in the line of education. The last thing I wanted to say, and this gets several steps farther down the line, if the county commission is overcome with the desire to spend some of our money, and the county commission likes to spend it on lawyers, one very constructive thing that it could do, and maybe you better find out if you have the statutory authority to do this. I haven't thought about that. But one thing that would be very useful to everybody is sample leases. Is what are the possibilities for including in a lease protections for the landowner, for the surrounding landowners? What is the best state of the legal art in making these things enforceable? And beyond that, the county commission probably could pass some sort of resolution of intent that if a landowner who leased drilling rights with a lease which had been prepared in cooperation with counsel provided by the commission, if such a lease were broken by the drilling company, the county commission could take action, and maybe Mr. Saffer as a lawyer could correct me, the county commission could take action, could petition to be joined to the case on the side of the landowner to assist the landowner with enforcing his rights. And this really goes back to the fundamental philosophy of government, which is that its legitimate purpose is to protect the rights of the people rather than to usurp them. So I would like to see more meetings. I would like to see the cooperation of our media solicited to gather more opinion. I would like to see more presentations from people knowledgeable on various sides of the issue, and there are more than two sides, I'm sure. And I would like to see the commission at least explore the possibility of providing assistance to all the people in Pocahontas County to make sure that if leases are sold, the language is the most protective possible, and that the county commission would do what they could to help landowners then enforce the terms.
Thank you.